to the Humans vs. Retirement podcast with financial planner and retirement specialist Dan Haylett. In this podcast, Dan explores ways to help you overcome the behavioural, emotional and financial challenges of life after work. Join Dan for the journey where he will explore how our wonderful human brain will naturally fight against what it takes to live a happy, healthy and wealthy retirement. Dan will draw on years of expertise, experience and expert guests to solve the behavioural, emotional and financial challenges of life after work. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Humans vs. Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Dan Haylett. And now on this episode of the podcast, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by founder and president of Concurrent Financial Planning, all the way from Green Bay, Wisconsin in the United States of America, Dr. Preston Cherry. Dr. Cherry, a warm welcome to the Humans vs. Retirement podcast.
Happy to be here, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Can't wait to dive into this conversation. I'm going to leave all of my Green Bay Packer fanboy stuff to one side for a little bit, and Lambeau Field and coming into your neck of the woods is on my bucket list. So we won't discuss that in this episode. But I'm super excited to get into this conversation because the work that you do is so phenomenal in the way that you put financial wellness, financial well-being at the forefront of your financial planning business and all of the other work that you do. And I think those list of achievements and the work that you don't, I don't know where you fit the time. I don't know how you get the time to do what you do, but you run the amazing business that you've got, Concurrent Financial Planning. You're head of financial planning and program director at the Charles Schwab Centre for Personal Finance at the University of Wisconsin in Green Bay. You've published research in some of the top journals in America, the Journal of Personal Finance. You look at, I think a lot of your current work is around personality traits and financial uncertainty. And you've been cited by New York Times, Forbes, Wall Street Journal. List goes on and on and on. So just want to thank you for the work that you do. And cannot wait to have this conversation and tap into your wisdom around this. So, but kind of first, I'm kind of after all that intro, I need a breath. I'd love for you just to kind of let me and the listeners know that amazing journey you've been on and how you've got to where you are today.
Sure, and just want to return the long bio. Just say, big fan of your work, Dan. You're doing so much. I follow you everywhere, and just a big fan. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
The journey itself, I keep it brief so we can get into the meat and then potatoes of things, so we can help people. It's about them, not us. But stories matter, and I talk about that a lot. Which is, we sometimes pay people to go hear their stories so we can be inspired about, hearing them, so we can say, hey, me too, I can relate with that, right? So I would just say that we talked about money in the home, Dan, a lot. We had family meetings, and some of those meetings are still recorded, and playing them back, 40 years later, I'm 44, and hearing those stories, those still resonate with my sister and I. We're real close. So carrying those stories with us, and those encouraged habits and the things that how we relate with money and how we are dealing with money as we speak right now. So I would just say that we talked about money in the home from our parents. They instilled self-worth, self-value into us. So I talk about all the time how those are compoundable assets in life. So that generational wealth doesn't always have to be about the currency of the matter. It can be about those characteristics of the matter, right? And so I think those fast forwarding all the way ahead to say college for me, I had a mentor, and he said, you know what, you might be good at this personal finance thing. I didn't know it was a career. And the reason why he thought that maybe is because of the familiarity I had about it from those money conversations all the way through the home. So, and then fast forward even more years, went to Texas Tech, majored in financial planning through master's years and then the doctorate, and did, financial planning out in the field. Got turned on to financial psychology during the PhD time through, Dr. Sarah Acevedo. And, I've always been a person of compassion and empathy. I learned those traits from my mother just naturally. So when I was able to put it all together, through the numbers aspect of it, through the mind and emotion of it, and then put it all together through academia and profession, it just all made sense. And that's how we got here.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I've listened to some of your talks, and I think those the stories that you tell and the impact that your parents have had on you and the journey that you've been on just kind of flows out of how you work, the stories you tell, and all of the things that are behind the work that you do with people impacting their lives. So it's just absolutely amazing. So thanks for sharing that with us. It's so cool. So look, Preston, this podcast is kind of that humans versus retirement. This is around thinking about those challenges that a modern day retirement brings to people. And I know it's an area that you've really looked at before. And I know you're a big fan of kind of models and thinking about how to think a bit differently to these challenges. So I'm really curious, what do you believe are some of the, if not the main challenges when it comes to this man-made invention that we've come to know and call retirement?
Yeah, I actually like the word retirement because it's so familiar to people. It is global, right? It is familiar to folks on your side of the pond and our side of the pond. I mean, it flashes the light bulb, right? And so I think we just have to have better conversations about what retirement means, and thus your podcast, right? So what does it mean? I think retirement just means what we're retiring from. You're retiring from, your must do to what you want to do. And you can do that at any time. So I don't think we have to come up with another word for retirement. I just think we just have these discussions about what it is and what we can do and what we have to do in order to release, what that next stage is. It's all about aspiration. I have this thing, what's your aspirational life? What do you aspire to do? Also asking yourself, what don't you want to do? And then once
which can be more important, right? Can be much more important.
Yeah. Right. What don't you want to do? All right. That's inspiration in of itself. It leads to, that transition aspect. It says, I don't want to do that anymore. So how do I get myself to a point to where I can transition to the next thing, right? And have that transformational event into retirement. So I think just having a discussion about retirement, defining it, what it means to the person, and getting on that journey to get there.
Do you think some of the issues, again, I absolutely agree with you. I think this kind of trying to think of another word for this only confuses the matter. We're all familiar with the word retirement. We just need to kind of reframe, I think, the meaning of it. Do you think that meaning's been challenged and somewhat lost in the fact that people have associated retirement with some arbitrary number? Do you think that's kind of where it's got to? You mentioned earlier on, you don't have to wait till you're X to retire, right? People, I think of, Social Security or state pension over here is often the age they tell you that they're going to. It seems as if we've been a bit brainwashed into the number equals retirement, but it has to mean more than that, surely.
Right. Sure. I agree 100%, which is not only a specific age, it also too a particular lifestyle. It says, okay, well, when you retire at this age, which has been tied to a certain, you get a governmental program, governmental benefit, and you know what, those rules of thumb ages, we need to know them, so we can so we can claim our benefits. We did pay for them. Hey, listen, I'm going to get mine, right? Right, because I paid for them. So, but that said, like you said, we don't. Those are, if we want to retire early, retire from our must do to our next part of our journey, we can choose whatever age we like. To whatever your means are going to support. Dan. We don't have to be pressured to say, hey, if it's 45 or 35 or 55, right? You don't have to be pressured to retire, quote unquote, early to the next thing. Take it as short as you want or as long as you want, according to what your capacity or what your life is affording you. Everybody has different paces. So I always encourage folks to focus on your journey. I had this thing called FOMO over FOMO, which is focus on moving on with your plan. So FOMO instead of fear of missing out. Yeah. Because your number is your number, and then once you pick when you want to retire to your next thing, then you can pick how you want to fund that win. Very important.
I think that's such a wonderful framework to think about. I do a lot of work around that. What are you retiring from and to with people? I think too many people focus on what they're retiring from, that must do, and don't really think about the to and what they want to do and then how they want to do it. So I think it's such a great thing to talk about. I want to delve on that a little bit. That your thing around must do to want to do, which I think is just a wonderful snippet to take from this podcast. Have you got any suggestions or any kind of experiences around the people that you work with around how to start to think about moving from must do to want to do, and how can you figure out what you want to retire to and from? Is there any kind of things that you can cover off on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's imagination, Dan. As I know you and I have talked about a lot in some of our cohorts, but it is connecting with yourself, and that sometimes that's hard to do. Connecting with, imagining your future self. And I share this thing sometimes is your past self is trying to tell your future self, and your future self is your now self, by the way. Your now self is just your future self, from the past. It's saying, hey, listen, that old adage, if you would have known then what you know now, all right. Well, if you would have known then, all right, the person of the past, all right, now the person that you are now, it was your future self with the past self, right? So now what is your future self, your current self? What would that person would have told that person then? Okay. So you do have currently a future and current self. They're connected. So now just take that one more, deviation over, one more rung over, and now you have a current self, and imagine your next future self. All right. So imagine, connect with that person because you've already done it before. You've already done it before. So you do it one more time, and so imagine how you want that other person to live. All right. What do I want to do next? What is my aspiration? So imagine. And then once you boldly aspire, and I love the word aspire, to do what's next, then that is the connective glue that says, all right, what moves do I need to make? What action do I need to take in order to make that happen? All right. And therein lies that inspiration, right? To say, okay, I can do that because I've already selected what I do want to do.
So good. I mean, do you think that there's any, there's obviously a lot of research around the psychology of future self and how we struggle to put ourselves kind of in in that future self. And I think you've highlighted it beautifully there, really, to go, well, we've done it quite a few times before, right? So you just got to think about that and take yourself back and think about when you did it before and your ability to do that now. Do you think people are often held back because they've been somewhat suppressed through kind of work or career, that they feel that they can't dream big, or, you know, that they're a bit suppressed around having the ability to go, I need to dream big and I want to get there? That must affect people from the background that they've been through to get to the point that they want to start thinking about the future.
Yeah, that's a great question. Life is not just all, beds of roses. I mean, it's ebbs and flows. It is ebbs and flows. And I know sometimes, whether it be on social media or TV or whatever it may be, right? And maybe even, motivational speakers or this, that, and the other, it seems like, life is just this linear trajectory up. And emotions are always feeling well. And that's simply not the case. We have seasons. My mother likes to call them seasons. And there's reasons for seasons, and we make our way through. And what does that have to do with your question? Meaning, life is going to wear on us a little bit sometimes. And so it may jade our perception a little bit. And so we're going to have to recover from the seasons that, we have been through, in order to, prepare ourselves, or to allow ourselves, to give ourselves permission to say, all right, we can do the next thing. Right. And so I have this module, this 6A framework, where it's, first of all, it's admitting where you are, and then acknowledge how you feel about it. And then so you can take action, and then you can align where you want to go and aspire to do that and achieve it. And what's that, where we are, what we're talking about now is, once you, admitting where you are is, okay, I'm here. All right. Wherever here means to you. And then acknowledging how you feel about it. And that means it's a process, Dan, and it allows you to work yourself through, whatever state of being that you're in. And then that cleanses the palate, so to speak. And then it opens you up. I always say, open up the heart, open up the mind, and then that clears, the spirit, the mind. It allows you to say, okay, what is next? But it's always giving yourself some compassion, right? First, in order to release that next step of, all right, now I can figure out what I want to do next.
I love that framework. That's so cool. I think I've said it on a few podcasts before, but there's a wonderful little button on the podcast for all the listeners here. It's the rewind 30-second button. I suggest everyone hits that and listens to the 6A framework. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
That you've done. I think it's such an amazing framework. And one point I want to go back to, actually, that I think it relates really perfectly into the thing you just said. You talk about social media, and you talk about, you kind of log on to social media and you never see photos of people upset or angry or doing something they don't want to do. It's a linear kind of, everyone's having fun, everyone's having a good time. And I think one of the challenges is that you mentioned your journey. It needs to be your journey. And one of the dangers I do see with working with people is that there's a comparison thing that comes in. And then if you're comparing you're comparing your journey to someone else's, that can have some pretty negative connotations around how you want to look forward. It's like, well, if you don't believe you can achieve what they are achieving, then you might go, well, there's no point anyway doing this. But you need to be confident in your journey and do what's most important to you. And I think that sense of discovery is really important in this, right? What are your values, unique values? What is so important to you? And then you align your money and your time and your energy towards that. And I know you've done a bit of work around those values, right?
Well, most definitely. There's a couple of words that can really lead folks astray on their journey. All right. They. That's one word. All right. People. That's the second word. All right. And then haters. That's the third word. Those three words right there can lead people astray.
I'm just gonna write them down.
Right. So yeah, they. It's like, so they, right? They say, hold on, that doesn't have nothing to do with you, right?
Yeah.
Well, people, oh wait, hold on. That ain't got nothing to do with you either, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm those haters. Well, they ain't got nothing to do with you either. Those none of the right. So
there's the truth right there, though. Hey, that is the truth.
Those are three words that can really lead us astray. But we're all affected by it sometimes. But it's when we do realize that it's awareness to take a step back, give ourselves pause, take a breather, and say, what does that really matter? And it's giving ourselves some pause in order to process what that is, and then reestablish ourselves and go through a proper process. So I call that a honest self audit of oneself. Get into the mirror, right? Because the mirror can be a healthy audit or an expensive tax, one of the two. So because it doesn't lie. So that all of that helps with not being led astray by all the external noise, because life is ebb and flows. It doesn't have to be difficult all the time. I say life is not just about trial; it has triumph in it too. And we need to celebrate those times. So, but when life does present challenges, it can be challenging. We need energy for that, right? So, all that to be said is that we have to exert energy on our own lives, much less be looking all over and all that, to be looking over everybody else's life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that comes to the crux of what the challenges around a modern day life are, but also kind of, bringing that back into the retirement, what this modern day transition from a career that's provided all of the identity that you've probably had for the last 35, 40 years. There's so much more noise now, isn't there, to deal with than what our parents or our grandparents had to deal with. And I think that noise can often be such a distraction and really play into the negatives around people's mindset and psychology. So I think that's where we come in, right? I mean, that's why I love calling it guidance, right? Financial guidance and talking about well-being, because this is about guiding through transitions, bumps in the road, and stuff that comes in the way, and allowing us to have those really deep and meaningful conversations with people to allow them to tackle some of this stuff that's there. Because I think it's very hard to look yourself in the mirror and have that conversation with yourself in the mirror and probably come to the right conclusion, right? Having accountability and a third party and someone that's not you must be so important to a successful transition into retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit something key on the head there, which is, allowing yourself to get to the next stage, just giving yourself permission, to advance, just working yourself through that in of itself, right? Just saying, am I allowed to go to the next stage? What am I going to do? All right. So that stage of itself takes a little pause, right? It's simply giving oneself permission. And I guess I prefaced it with the word simply, and I didn't want to discount that. Sometimes it's not that simple. It's not that simple. And I'm sure you've worked with folks before, and I'm sure people are listening out there too. It's like, well, what is next? Some folks are I've heard this exercise before, and I've seen it in books, so this is not original, but it stuck with me, which is explain who you are without mentioning what you do. And that is incredibly tough for a lot of folks. I mean, because you have a sense of community where you work, you have relationships, you have a sense of production, you have a sense of worth, value. So it's very hard, and it's tied to what you've been doing, your must do, and very little time to, and even with raising family, if you have that, or a spouse. So it's like, okay, who am I, the individual, and what is next? So that is a process, that is a process, separating not only must do from your professional life, to separating yourself from your responsibilities of, sharing your emotions with, your spouse or your children. You're going into a whole another phase. So it's permission to go to the next phase freely. Right. And I have a little acronym that I share about, financial freedom, so to speak. And then using that freedom, which is financially retired, embrace and empower doing me, which is doing, you. And it's embrace and empower doing. So you're financially retired, but you're not final retired. And you embrace and empower, giving yourself permission to do you.
I think that I again, this is not original. I heard it, but just because you retire from work doesn't mean you retire from life, right?
Yeah.
And actually, you've probably got the opportunity to unretire from life post work, because now you've probably got the best opportunity since you were 8 or 12 years old to feel probably as free as you've ever felt, to be able to. And you've got all these wonderful learned experiences behind you to go what you don't like and what's really important. So what an amazing opportunity to be able to kind of go, well, this is now something that, as you said, my journey, my time. Let's make sure that I really spend. I think this is my point. I don't think enough people spend enough time on this, right? They don't give themselves enough grace to go, here we are. Let's spend some time and sit down and really think about what this looks like. I know whatever I map out today is wrong tomorrow, but I know that it's going to be a really interesting process to map out what I want. I've got a blank canvas to design the life that I really want. And I think that's, what an amazing opportunity for people to grasp and take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And to extend that just a little more, I love your word grace. I mean, because that's fantastic, right? And then when I had this saying where it says, where if you let your life lead your money, then, and not your money lead your life, then this is part of aspiration. I call that life money balance, right? So you're letting your life lead your money. So what you're describing, which is perfect, which is taking the time, as you mentioned, to really work through. I mean, it's an exciting time. You get no other better shot to say, hey, listen, what do I want to do? Once your life is defined, when you create your life's design, then that feeds into what your money is going to do for you. And that feeds into all the numbers and the strategy. I get, people share, I get people ask me all the time. They're like, well, when are we going to get to the numbers of, of all this, the financial, when are you going to financial plan me? And I said, well, I said, I promise you the strategy is coming. It's going to come like a fire hose. I'll hit you with all the numbers that you want. I promise you that, but it's not going to make sense. It's not going to connect if you don't create the life that you don't want first. So, yeah.
Yeah. So true. So true. I think you've mentioned a few things from a model or a model that you've got that we've spoke about before that I think is really, really important. It's a bit of a journey that you go through, and that's the 4 T's. And you've mentioned, I think, 3 of them already in this conversation. But I think it's such a valuable couple of minutes or 10 minutes to spend on this for the listeners, because I do think it's one that we'll all go through when it comes to retirement. It's a sense of ups and downs. And I'd love you just to explain what those 4 T's are and how that can apply and how people can really think about how that can help and impact them as they kind of delve into this really exciting part of their life.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Yeah, the four T's. So often when we talk about money, it's I think I should throw a 5th one in there, like taboo, but it's not. It's not in there. But I don't know. I don't know. Well, we do know why, but because money is taboo. Money is part of everyday life. It is part of our, and I say this a lot, which is money is part of our existence. It's part of our existence because it's part of our toil. When you lose some money, it's almost like you're losing a piece of self because you earned it. You worked for it, you sacrificed for it, this, that, and the other. It's not like you're, losing it, because it's part of self-worth or something. Some people are, but it is about it is a trade for time, a piece of life. So it is part of existence. And then what you're trying to use it for, right? So it's taboo because it's a sense of expression of emotion, right? And then when you want to share your emotions, it's private sometimes. So that's why it's taboo a little bit. A little tangent there. But the 4 T's in particular are, and where I was going with that is that money seems to be always tied to something quasi negative. Your relationship with money. Okay. So this is what leads to the first T, which is trial. All right. Money doesn't always have to be trial, but we do have trial in our life. Okay. We do have trial to our life, and I'll connect the last 2 T's in a minute, what trial can do for you. And I share in some of my stories what trial did for me. All right. And I'm grateful what trial did for me. Let me go to number 2, which is trial is something that you can overcome. Okay. Now the second T is triumph. Triumph is a celebration. These are happy events, right? It's life events, marriage or, windfalls or, just things that happen to you, graduation days, you buy a house, whatever it may be, those triumphant events that you remember, senses of joy, right? And these are life stage events as well. And those either motivate or come with money. Then the first 2 T's leads to the last 2 T's, which is transition and transformation. Transition to another stage of self or life, and transformation. I guess transformation of self and transition to another stage. All right, because particularly coming out of triumph, you really decide, you really do a healthy, honest analysis of self, and you're coming out of something, you're overcoming it. It may take time. And I share with people all the time. It may take 3 minutes, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. And we go back to those words of they, people, and haters, right? It doesn't matter how long it takes you to overcome some triumph. You take care of it at your own pace. But it does allow you to transition to your next journey, and it also allows for transformation of self. All right. And then when you transformation of self, you get to transition to that next thing. All right. And the same thing with triumph. All right. It allows you to transform oneself to what you want to do and transition to that next stage. Those are the 4 T's: trial, triumph, transition, transformation.
I think you mentioned another word that doesn't begin with T, which I think is really important, and that's emotion. So, throughout those 4 T's is that I think the running theme is that emotion is the biggest one of the biggest reasons why it feels like it's triumph or trial or the reason why we don't want to talk about it, or the reason why the power of money becomes negative, because our emotional connection to, again, what you've been through. If you've been through some trials and there's a negative connection to money, one of the real common things that I see, and I try and have conversations about how people that I work with that are approaching retirement, what have they observed in other people, friends, colleagues, parents, maybe even grandparents. And quite often what they've observed is negative. And they've taken those negatives, and it's kind of like, I've seen them not enjoy it, or I saw them kind of, not live life, and the emotion of that trial that they've seen just kind of flows through into how they feel that they're going to enter into retirement. So I think that, the emotional side of money is just, I mean, it must be the number one, if not in the top 2 or 3 of, emotional states that we put ourselves in, because we might connect that power with a lot of negativity, I think.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. And and sometimes it's overcoming, or overshadowing is the word. Sometimes that negativity, or even the sacrifice, or some of the pain that was given in order to place yourself even in a position. Some people are even ready or prepared for retirement, but still have the, like you mentioned, these remembrances, these connections, the relationships, with how that money was earned over the years, what was given up, so to speak, all this. And then that overshadows some of the joys along the way also. And then also what the joys that are coming up, some of the inputs that was placed into the journey to get here, those are the very reasons why you did such a thing, which is allow you to do what you're going to do next. My father, my pops, man, he and my grandfather, my mother, the two, they've been married 45 years. So they both contributed to, how they're living now in their retirement. But I'll just use my father's example because he worked all the way through, which was, and my grandfather, they were rigid in their schedule. My grandfather worked, I think, 50 years, and my dad like 45 or something like that matter. But they were rigid in their schedule. They went to sleep at a certain time, woke up at a certain time, lunch at a certain, dinner at a certain time. I mean, it was just like clockwork, right? But my dad said, I didn't have very many goals in life, but to, be a good husband, be a good father to you all, so you can do what y'all want to do in life, this, that, and the other. But one consistent goal I did have in life was never to have to work again.
Yeah.
And the reason why he woke up every day and made those sacrifices and everything, he didn't really necessarily like it, but he accomplished his goal to never have to work again.
Yeah.
So he didn't let his pain or all that, which was hard work, and it wasn't good every day. He didn't let it overshadow what the work he put in. And I'll say this lastly, which sometimes it does provide a barrier to folks in retirement, is they don't even allow themselves to say, this is my time. This is my time. That's that permission thing that we're talking about. I know you've seen that too.
Yeah, what an amazing story. It's so cool to hear those stories, because I do think it's a conversation I have a lot, and it's, particularly for people that have had that goal. It's kind of, I'm not fully invested in my career. This is not a vocation. I've worked to get to an end point, or to a goal, or to a point. And I think the pain that they've gone through to get there, often that person or couple has to be reminded of that, because that pain has been so great sometimes. And it doesn't have to be, but it's been kind of such a a rigid or not a great journey to get there, that they get institutionalized into that mindset before they get to the point that they need to release. And it's like, well, why have you done all that? Don't let the last 30 years of that goal and that work influence you now. You need to somehow wipe it out. And obviously so much easier said than done. But, that I think it's that story of your father so important. It's, why have you done what you've done? Mm-hmm. And remind yourself of that. And actually, you can remind yourself of that throughout retirement, can't you? I think, the psychology of spending is such a wide-ranging issue, and people can't let go of money for a whole variety of reasons, right? But if you constantly remind yourself of the why that you did what you did to allow you to feel financially free, I think that's such an important continuous reminder to have during spending and retirement.
Absolutely. You hit it. Yeah, you hit it right on the head there. And particularly, like you said, about spending, and you're spending on yourself. All right. And it's a sense of gratitude and celebration of life. I mean, putting in that work, whether it be a vocation that wasn't a chosen career or one that you chose. Either way, everything takes sacrifice. I mean, and a commitment. It was a commitment, to get to a certain point. And it's like, yeah, like you said, it was like, why did you do all that work? Right. Now it's my time now. Right. So to your point, I think some of that mindset shift would definitely help folks change their relationship with spending, and particularly in retirement. I know it would for me. I don't think I'm going to have that problem, of myself. But for those that do, it's like, hey, listen, man, we worked hard for this, right? And it's a gift. It's a blessing, and having a sense of gratitude and, like you said, grace, and a celebration of your hard work and investment that you placed in yourself. Hey, do that thing. And you only get one. You only get one turn around the globe. You don't know. And I share with people all the time. Don't suffer from HBB. And they're like, "What the heck is HBB?" Don't suffer from get hit by a bus. I mean, because you can get hit by a bus anytime. All right, so have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got so many analogies from this call. It's fantastic. This is so brilliant. I do think, one of the things I try and talk with people is how you've got your money, because I think how you've got it and where you've got it from has such an impact about how you're going to spend it. And I've had several conversations with people that have either inherited money or got money through maybe insurances, through bad circumstances, and the reluctance to want to spend that money because of how that money was accumulated and got. But the conversation that you open up with them is that, would that person want you to feel like this? And, would they? And I think as soon as you start breaking down those barriers and understanding that, and it can be with anything, right? If you've had a tough time at work and you've accumulated this money through hardship, or, there's a whole host of reasons. But I think how we need to understand, for all the listeners out there, in my opinion, we need to understand how we got it has a big impact on how we spend it. And unless we get to the point that we understand how we got it and we can deal with how we got it, it is psychologically very challenging to kind of let go up here. So it's really, really important to kind of look back, understand, and then realize, I've got it for a reason. Right. And now it's my time, as you said.
Mm-hmm. And we're all human, and like you got the human in the podcast, right? And one of the greatest fears too is I don't think people want to go backwards. No. People don't want to go backwards, and having a protection blanket of accumulated monies says that I'm quote unquote guaranteed to not have to rescind backwards to anywhere. At least I know I have a floor of what I'm used to, so to speak. So I think that's some of it too, a little bit.
Absolutely. But I think on the flip side, Preston, and I know you've done some work on this, that as human beings, we are wired to want to move forward, aren't we? So, I think I think by having that attitude, you feel like you're having the foundation. And as long as I don't move backward, I'm okay. But 3, 4, 5 years into that mindset, it can be quite damaging as well, because actually we are wired to want more. We are wired to move forward. And I think it's really important to understand that. Again, that thing that we talked about 10, 15 minutes ago, we're not retiring. We might retire from work, but not retiring from life.
Yes.
Life goes on and we need to move forward, and we can't just sit still, even in retirement.
Yeah, most definitely. Because then there's regret. Yeah, there's regret. It's like, what didn't I do? And we can't buy more eternal time, but we can buy more time that we have while we're here. And if we didn't,
so true.
If we didn't spend, not only our money, but our time the way we wanted to, then we're going to live with some regret. And those are the regrets nobody really wants to have, when it's our time.
And I think that interconnection of time and money is something that everyone needs to explore. I think we all know it. I think we all understand it, but I'm not sure whether we all are prepared to go to the place we need to go to have that real deep conversation about how interconnected they are and how your money needs to support what's most important to you in terms of that time.
Yeah, I completely agree, for sure.
Yeah. This has been absolutely fascinating and energizing. It's been such a cool conversation. As we kind of wind down, I've got a couple of questions I'd love to ask you, if that's okay. Have I got permission to
open floor,
ask some personal stuff?
Yeah, open book.
Cool.
Open book.
So, what would Dr. Preston Cherry's retirement look like?
I like being a traveler. I do like being a traveler. I've been doing some international traveling. I'm getting married this summer. And being a global citizen matches my spirit. So I'm very much of part of the human condition. So I love learning about different cultures, seeing different parts of the world. And if, the good Lord gives me some time, I would love to see as much of, different cultures and different scenes as I can. So a lot of bit of traveling, not a little bit, a lot of bit of traveling. If the pockets can stretch that far, right? So a little bit of that, a little bit of chilling too, just some rest. I would love to just buy some rest. It's underrated, Dan. I'd like to take 2, 3, 4, 5 days and not do nothing. I think it was on a movie called Office Space. He said, what would you do if you won $1 million? He was like, well, I wouldn't do nothing, Yeah. I wouldn't do nothing.
You.
So a couple of those things. Yeah. So.
Fantastic. And you know what, just quickly, I think it's a really important point, actually, because you get, this period after retirement, I think there's this, I don't know where it's come from, but there's this real urge to kind of finish on the Sunday finish on the Friday and have everything lined up for the Monday thereafter, have my weeks scheduled and done again. And it comes back to the grace point as well. Like, give yourself some rest, right? Take time and just go relax and enjoy the sun and, do something. But don't feel like you have to step back into the fire.
Right. Give yourself some time. I can't wait for it. So, you hit it right on the head. I can't wait for a period just to think, and figure it out. That in of itself is a joy. I give you one last thing. I want to pick up back my leisure books without guilt. I'm actually tired of reading about money. If you think that,
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So yeah.
For sure. So I'm going to ask you to put your financial planning hat on for me.
Sure.
And so I'm a client of yours at Concurrent Financial Planning. We've done some numbers. You've thrown all those numbers at me, and we've realized that I have got enough money. What would you write down for me as the number one tip, the thing to pin on my fridge as, the number one tip for a happy, healthy, and wealthy retirement?
And you don't have enough money?
I have. Sorry, we've established
you have enough money. Okay,
you have the money's there. We've crunched the numbers. I'm good. What would be the thing for me to pin on my fridge to go, that thing helps me live a healthy, happy, and wealthy retirement?
I would recommend a question somewhere along these lines of what was it before retirement in life, or how, and how did you want to live your life that you weren't doing, out of just joy and just pure existence before retirement, and you wanted to do such a thing. All right. How do you want to do that now? Right. How do you want to do that now? And then do it. Because when we're living through life, right, we say that we can't do that, not right now, or that's not in the cards. I'll do that later. This, that, or the other. All right. Well, the later is now. So what did you not do? Or how were you not living? What did you want to do? What was your aspiration that you set aside? What was that thought? What was that feeling that you wanted to have? All right. So what were you not doing that you wanted to do? And now that you have the opportunity to do it, and then just say, do it. And then say thank you that you can do it, and live in gratitude.
I think that would be so cool to have on the fridge. You could probably just put, other sportswear manufacturers are available, but you could probably just have the Nike tick, right? Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. There you go. Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great tip. Preston, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. Is there anything that I've not asked you that you wish I would have done, or anything we've not covered that you wish we could cover right now?
Wow. I think we covered the gamut, Dan.
We've done well, haven't we?
Yeah, we did good. So I want to give some people their time back so they can go just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just perfect. Dr. Cherry, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your energy and everything. It's been such an amazing conversation to have. So a massive thank you for that. And can't wait to talk to you again, and can't wait to get this out and everyone listening. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to the Humans versus Retirement podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me today. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Humans versus Retirement podcast. Subscribe to be notified when new episodes become available. We would love to have you along for the journey. If you like what you heard, then we would appreciate you taking a few minutes to leave us a review. And lastly, if you want to explore your retirement plans further, download our free 7-step retirement GPS toolkit linked in the show notes. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of TFP or Dan Haylett. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, so please always seek the advice of professionals with any questions you may have regarding your retirement.